still remember the exact moment I realized I wasn't alone in that building. The security cameras proved it before I ever heard a sound. It was my first night working as a security guard, and I was already regretting it. The warehouse sat at the far edge of an industrial park, miles from the nearest neighborhood. During the day, trucks came and went, engines roaring, men shouting over the noise. But at night, the place felt abandoned, like the world forgot it existed. My shift started at 10 p.m. By 10:30, the silence had already started pressing in on me. The manager, Carl, handed me a ring of keys before leaving. "Just patrol every hour," he said. "Check the doors, watch the cameras. Easy money." He didn't smile when he said it. "Anything I should know?" I asked. Carl paused halfway out the door. "If you hear something, check it. Probably just the building settling." Probably. Then he left, and his car disappeared down the long gravel road. After that, it was just me. And the warehouse. The security office was small, lit by a flickering fluorescent bulb that hummed nonstop. 4 monitors showed camera feeds from around the property: loading docks, storage aisles, hallways, and the empty parking lot. I tried to focus on the job. Doors locked, alarm panel green, no motion alerts, everything normal. Still, something about the building felt off. Maybe it was the smell, dust mixed with old cardboard, or the way the ceiling stretched high above the aisles, swallowing sound. Even my footsteps seemed nervous. At 11 p.m., I did my first patrol. The beam from my flashlight cut through the darkness as I walked between towering shelves stacked with sealed boxes. Each step echoed longer than it should have. I kept thinking I heard something behind me, but every time I turned, nothing. Just rows of silent boxes. When I returned to the office, I told myself to relax. First night nerves. That was all. Then I saw it. Camera 3 showed the east hallway. At first, it looked empty. Then I noticed the door at the end of the hall. It was slowly swinging shut. I froze. I had checked that door 10 minutes earlier. It was heavy, metal, and hard to move, even with both hands. There was no way it should be drifting closed on its own. I rewound the footage. Watched again. The door opened about 6 inches, stopped, then closed. No one in sight, no shadow, nothing. A draft, I thought. Had to be. Still, I grabbed my flashlight and went to check. The hallway felt colder than the rest of the building. My breath almost fogged as I walked toward the door. When I reached it, I pulled it open. The hinges groaned loud enough to hurt my ears. On the other side was a narrow stairwell leading down into darkness. I shined my light down the steps. Concrete walls, no movement, no sound. I shut the door harder than I meant to and locked it. When I got back to the office, I avoided looking at camera 3 for a while. Midnight came slower than any hour I've ever lived. I kept glancing at the monitors, expecting something else to move. Nothing did. So I made coffee. Bad idea. The machine gurgled so loudly, I almost jumped out of my skin. I laughed at myself. Then I noticed camera 2. One of the motion sensors had triggered. My stomach tightened. The camera overlooked aisle D, one of the longest rows in the warehouse. At first, I didn't see anything. Then the light shifted, like something had passed in front of it. I leaned closer to the screen. "Hello?" I said, before realizing how stupid that was. No one could hear me. I rewound the footage. This time, I saw it clearly. A dark shape crossed the aisle. Too tall to be a dog, too narrow to be a forklift. It moved fast, but the camera never caught a full view. I told myself it was probably a trick of the light. Still, protocol said I had to check. So I went. The warehouse felt bigger now. Each aisle looked the same, stretching into darkness. When I reached aisle D, I stopped at the entrance and listened. Nothing. No breathing, no movement. But the air felt used, like someone had just walked through. I stepped in slowly. My flashlight trembled in my hand. Halfway down the aisle, I heard it. A soft scrape. Behind me. I spun around. The beam shook across the concrete floor. Empty. "Get it together," I whispered. Then another sound came. From ahead, a box shifted. Not fell. Shifted. I backed out of the aisle. Didn't run. But I didn't turn my back again either. When I got to the office, I locked the door. Not part of the rules. I didn't care. At 1:17 a.m., the power flickered. Just once. But long enough for the monitors to go black. When they came back on, something had changed. Camera 1, the parking lot, showed a car, parked near the gate. My heart started pounding. I hadn't heard an engine, no gravel crunch, nothing. I zoomed in. The car was old, dark-colored, and empty. I called Carl, straight to voicemail. Then I called the non-emergency police line. They said they'd send someone to drive by. "Stay inside," the dispatcher told me. I didn't need convincing. 5 minutes later, I checked the camera again. The car was gone, no headlights, no sound, just gone. At 2 a.m., I considered quitting, just grabbing my bag and leaving. But I needed the job. So I forced myself to do another patrol. As I passed the east hallway again, I noticed the door. It was open, wide. I knew I had locked it. I walked toward it slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the doorway, a smell hit me. Wet concrete, rust, something sour. My light drifted down the stairwell and stopped. There were footprints on the dust-covered steps, fresh ones, leading up, not down, up, toward me. I slammed the door and locked it again. This time, I shoved a metal card against it. Rules didn't matter anymore. Back in the office, I couldn't sit still. Every tiny noise made my shoulders jump. Then camera 4 beeped. Motion detected. The screen showed the hallway outside the security office. I stared at it. Nothing. Then, 3 slow knocks hit my door. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Another knock. "Security," a man's voice called softly. Relief rushed through me so fast my knees weakened. "Police?" I asked. No answer. Just silence. I stepped closer to the door but didn't open it. "Who is it?" A pause, then the voice came again. "Let me in." Something about the tone felt wrong. Too calm. Too flat. "Identify yourself," I said. No reply. I looked at the monitor. The hallway was empty. No one stood outside my door. The knocking started again, but now I realized something that made my skin crawl. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from the wall behind me. I turned slowly. 3 more knocks. From inside the warehouse, right on the other side of the security office wall. I grabbed my flashlight and backed toward the monitors. The knocking dragged downward, like someone was sliding their hand along the wall. Then it stopped. Seconds later, camera 2 triggered again. Aisle D. I stared at the screen, then finally saw him. A man stepped into view. Tall, thin. His clothes hung loose, like they were soaked. His head tilted toward the camera. Then, slowly, he smiled. I ran to the phone and called 911. This time, I didn't care about protocol. While I spoke to the operator, the man didn't move, just stood there, watching the camera, watching me. Because somehow, I knew he could see me. Then he lifted one arm and pointed directly at the lens. The feed cut to static. The rest of the cameras went out one by one. Darkness swallowed the screens. Only the hum of the fluorescent light remained. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway outside. Slow, dragging. I locked myself in the tiny office bathroom and held the flashlight like a weapon. The footsteps stopped at the door. A shadow blocked the light beneath it. A fingernail scraped across the metal. Back and forth. Back and forth. "You checked the door," the same flat voice whispered. "I checked you." Tears blurred my vision, but I stayed silent. Minutes passed, or hours. I don't know. Eventually, sirens wailed in the distance. The shadow vanished. The building fell quiet again. Police searched the warehouse before dawn. They found nothing. No man, no car, no footprints, not even on the stairs. One officer told me I was probably overtired. Another suggested animals could trigger sensors. Animals don't smile at cameras. I quit that morning, never went back. A week later, Carl called, asked why I never returned the keys. I told him everything. There was a long silence on the line. Then he said something that still keeps me awake at night. "You saw him your first night?" he asked quietly. "How long did the last guy last?" Carl exhaled slowly. He didn't. Before I could ask what that meant, he added one last thing. "We only use 3 cameras now," he said. I felt cold all over. "You had 4 when you were there, but camera 2 was removed years ago." My throat tightened. "That's impossible," I whispered. I watched it. Another pause. Then Carl spoke in a voice barely above a breath. "No one has ever recorded anything on camera 2. I hung up without saying goodbye. But sometimes, when I try to sleep, I remember the man's smile. And I can't stop wondering, if that camera never existed, what was it that I was really watching?